2360 students. I hope everyone is doing well. So I thought it'd be helpful. I did an overview video of the Inclusive Practices Fieldwork project using a persona, but I thought it'd be helpful to kind of create different parts of videos. What I mean by that, it'd be helpful for me to break the parts up. Since it does have quite a few parts, I thought we can kind of do a few videos breaking up a couple parts each time. So the first thing I wanted to do was kind of look at the description, the purpose of this assignment. Remember, this is taking the place of going into the field, so this is called a key assessment, so it's important that you complete this project. If you do not, you will not pass the course. So the purpose of this assessment really is for you to gain a deeper understanding of exceptional development in young children, right? So when we're talking about early childhood, we look at birth to age 8. So you are going to choose a child persona, sort of like a case study, and you're going to learn all about that child, familiarize yourself with that persona. But you're also going to look at things such as the challenges that child faces, their exceptionality, if they're dual language learner. You're going to have to really do some research because the persona is only one piece of this project. So you need to research their exceptionality to gain a deeper understanding what the developmental needs are for someone who has this disability, as well as what the learning needs are for that child based on where they are at. So with this research, it really is going to help you write a 1 to 2 page summary explaining the child's unique characteristics, what are their challenges, environmental impacts, and what are the implications for practices as well. You also have to do exploration because we're looking at the child's development and learning needs, right? And with that, we're able to build partnerships with the families and other professionals in the field. Really, we're going to want to establish those positive relationships, interactions with the child. We have to be responsive, right? So we're going to respond to guiding questions in this project. So these guiding questions really are going to help you complete all the parts in this project. So when we talk about applying responsive teaching strategies, really you are going to be designing a play-based learning activity as one of the parts that's going to help meet the needs of that child based on the child persona. And it's really also going to allow you to develop what we call an advocacy plan, where you advocate. So you're promoting inclusive practices. That's really tailored to that specific persona. And then finally, you're going to do reflection. You're going to reflect on the entire assignment and really going to highlight insights you've gained, strategies for further development implementation, and then really, how did this assignment or project influence your reflective and intentional practice? So that is basically an overview, the purpose of the assignment and assessment. So like I mentioned, this is a key assessment. We address the following NAEYC professional preparation standards. So we're looking at Standard 1, Child Development and Learning in Context. Standard 3, Child Observation Assessment. And then Standard 4, developmentally, culturally, and linguistically appropriate teaching practices. Standard 6, professionalism as an early educator. So those are all the standards we're hitting with this key assessment. Now, I want to go ahead and jump into part 1. I'm going to, in this video, go over both parts 1 and 2, and in the next video, I will do parts 3 and 4. And then the last video that I will do will be part 5 and 6. So we'll break it up into a few videos. So let's go ahead and begin with part 1. So the first thing that you need to do when you're looking at this is first find the project. So what you're going to do, and hopefully you've had a chance to read over this, is get into the course, and underneath the Getting Started module, there is a section called Inclusive Practices Fieldwork. When you click on that, you're going to see the assignment, which is what I'm showing you right now. as well as a list of the personas. Now, the personas are case study. They are children, right? And we broke it up into 3 age groups. You've got infant, toddler. You got some to choose from there. You have, let me scroll down, preschool age in there. And then you also have pre-primary age, primary K3. So you have 3 age groups. You're only choosing one. It really doesn't really affect me one way or another what age group you would like to do, primary K3, the preschool, or infant toddler. So whichever one just interests you the most is the one you should choose. You will use the same persona for all the parts in the project. So that's the first thing you should do. In the assignment, there is a rubric which I will be going over, but first let me get to part 1 and 2. So let me go ahead and zoom in so we can look at part 1 specifically. So part 1 is really the research part, the summary part. So after you've looked at your child's persona and you've been given information about the child's family, the insights, the child's likes, interests, your job is to really, after you've chosen that child, is to familiarize yourself not only with the persona, the case study, but really looking at the child's, like I said, the family, the interest, if they're a dual language learner, what kind of disability, and that's where you're going to start. You're going to use that persona to start your research. You can use the Water State Library. If this is a Tennessee campus course, for 2360, you can use your school home campus library. You could use information from NAUIC, Council for Exceptional Children. So there's lots of different places you can research and use as sources. So what you're looking for when you're researching specifically is about that child's development, about that child's disability, right? And the characteristic challenges, environmental impacts, implication for practice. You're looking at all those things, and you're going to write up a 1 to 2 page summary explaining those things. So that is going to be part 1. Part 2, let's move on to that. Part 2 is where you're going to create what we call an informal observation assessment tool. Now, the reason we're doing this is because one of the things that we have to do as educators is that we have to partner with families and other professionals. And so what we do is we have to communicate the child's growth. We have to assess their needs. We have to look at how they are in the learning environment. We need to focus on, their positives, not just their negatives. So we need a holistic understanding of the child's abilities, right? And also, we need to know what their weaknesses are so we can tailor instruction and support them. But because of this, this assessment is also a way for us to communicate with parents and other professionals on developing a plan to meet the needs of that child. So I have a link here for you that kind of walks you through what an organic, authentic assessment would be. But your job specifically with part 2 is to create what we call an informal observation assessment tool. Now, you say, what is that? Well, after looking at the link, you're going to see that an informal observation tool is not formal, it's informal. So these things might include something like a checklist, anecdotal notes, or even a simple rating scale. And what that allows you to do is to observe the child daily and allow you to see how they're doing, looking at those things we talked about, their strengths, their skills, their talents, their interests. Those are the things we want to know about because that will help us be able to support them and to tailor our instruction if we needed to. And when we're looking at creating this observation assessment tool, look at the child's age, the developmental part. That's where you're recovering that in part 1 of your research. Now, after you create the tool, right, you're going to reflect on that tool. So we're going to utilize this, right? We're not going to just create it for nothing. We're going to utilize it, meaning we're going to see how the results of the observation assessment can be used to develop child's individual goals, curriculum plans, and instructional practices. We're also going to discuss what the benefits of sharing this analysis and assessment results are, and how does that help us partner positively with families and other colleagues. And then lastly, the collaboration strategies. What are some ways to collaborate with family and other professionals when we're trying to support the child's growth and development? Okay, so you underneath, after you create that tool, underneath you will just answer these questions. Okay, so that's part 1 and 2. And the reason I'm also breaking this up is that you have all semester until April to complete this. I do not want you to get behind. Because this is such a large project and you also have another project, case studies, I feel like it's helpful if you work on parts 1 and 2, and then once you have that completed, then you can go to 3 and 4. So if you break it up and chunk up the assignment, it's not as overwhelming. So I want to show you how you're going to lay this out. So if you'll scroll down toward the bottom, okay, so after we get through all the parts, I want you to see the format. That's important, okay? So this is going to be entire project. All the parts will be together in one document. So you'll see here when it talks about the overview, it said that this assignment must include all the elements below. So you're going to have a cover sheet, you know, APA guidelines, you're going to have my name, the name of the class, your name, all that stuff. And then you're going to have part 1, and everything that you completed for part 1, which would be your research and summary. Then part 2, you would include your informal observation assessment tool, and under that you would have your answers to the reflection questions, right? And then after that, we'll move on to part 3. So it's one complete document that keeps going, right? That's how you would do this. So that's just how the format needs to be. And as you start to continue to work on part 3, it will be underneath part 2. So essentially like a big project, research project paper is how you should keep it flowing. That's pretty much 1 and 2. I will do another video probably when we start on module 4. That's going to go over parts 3 and 4. You can work ahead, but just keep in mind that you should work in sections and chunk sections. That way, if you want to send me something and say, hey, does this look correct? Am I on the right track for part 1 or part 2? And then I can give you feedback while you're working on this, which students find helpful. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, so if you have any questions, don't forget to reach out. Until next